Some delegates of the ANC conference from Limpopo and the North West have indicated they will vote against their branch candidate in favour of presidential hopeful Dr. Zweli Mkhize. He will face off against the incumbent Cyril Ramaphosa, who last month appeared to have commanded a rather significant lead over Mkhize. For more on this, we can speak now to political analyst Thembisa Fakude, who's joining us from KZN. A very good afternoon to you, sir. Good evening, in fact. So, do you think at this point there is significant threat to a Ramaphosa return for a second term, especially when you consider the fact that he'd gone into this conference with such a significant lead?
Well, there's a threat, but I'm not quite sure whether it's significant or not. And just to put everything into perspective, this started when President Cyril Ramaphosa went through the possible vote of confidence, of no confidence, or being taken to account by the members of the ANC in Parliament. And you had Paul Mashatile moving some of the members within the ANC to push for the president to resign. That changed the entire political status because, as you remember, Paul Mashatile had a comfortable relationship as a number two man with Cyril Ramaphosa. But after that, there was suddenly a change of tone in terms of whether Cyril Ramaphosa should support Paul Mashatile as his deputy. And that's where this complication actually started. About a couple of days ago, you then had the so-called Cyril slate lobbying people such as Senzo Mchunu and Mr. Mabuyane from Eastern Cape to join in to compete with Paul Mashatile. And that has actually, over the past at least 36 hours, turned things around.
Right.
Where some members of Gauteng saying they will continue supporting Paul Mashatile.
Earlier, we spoke rather to Florence Ratilani from the ANC PEC in Limpopo, and she was saying they've now decided to go with Zweli Mkhize because basically there's had to be horse trading between KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo, and what they want basically ultimately as Limpopo is to have their provincial chair, Stan Mathabata, accommodated in the top 7, and they felt, according to Ratilani, that was not finding expression with the Ramaphosa camp. Yet another part of the ANC in Limpopo is saying, well, that is not the position of the province, so that should not be brought forward as Limpopo's stance going into this. How much does that reveal, though, about the quality of ANC leaders that ultimately it comes down to whether their candidate from their province gets a seat at the big table?
Well, I think this was an 11th hour change of direction, particularly by Stanley Mathabane, who was certain that he was going to be a part of that slate. But with Gwede Mantashe playing an important role in terms of protecting President Cyril Ramaphosa, the political direction did certainly change in favor of Gwede Mantashe, and Stanley Mathabane had to kind of concede that he's the second preference. But again, this will, if it does go ahead, it will be a betrayal of the branches of the ANC who have sent those delegates to go and lodge certain type of votes with certain type of politicians and their preferences. And if this does, of course, change, it will be the betrayal of that. And I'm not quite sure whether the political heads from provinces have got the power at this point in time to actually convince the delegates to vote otherwise.
And you wonder how much branches can do as far as holding their delegates to the message they were given leaving home, and accountability when they return, having perhaps changed their mind upon arrival at their destination on who to vote for. Also pair that with the fact that there's already been, as usual with the ANC conferences, rumours about money changing hands for certain votes.
Yeah, that's quite troubling. That whereas you had the spokesperson of the ANC, Pule Mabe, guaranteeing or at least giving us the word that there won't be money changing hands, including Gwede Mantashe at some point, but we continue hearing those reports that there's money changing hands. But having said that, I doubt if there's anything that's going to be done at this point in time, because this change of tactic and this change of direction was an 11th hour decision, as I've said earlier on. We all know that Mr. Mathabane has always been, he was the first one to endorse Cyril Ramaphosa, and this change of political direction happened in the last 36 hours when the slate of, or in inverted commas, the slate of President Cyril Ramaphosa decided to drop Mashatile and favour both Senzo Mchunu and Mr. Mabuyane of Eastern Cape to go and compete for that deputy position, and that has created the problem that we find ourselves at the moment.
Was it a tactical blunder on the part of the president's campaign?
I think it was, but at the same time, they didn't want to bring in Paul Mashatile as a deputy, given that Paul Mashatile has indicated earlier on whose side he was on when it came to the crux of the support of the president. He decided to side with those that wanted the president to resign. And as a result, you have the president and his men digging in their heels and saying that they don't want him to be the deputy president, and that's why we find ourselves in this situation. And so whether it was a tactical blunder or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Thembisa Fakude, good to speak to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time today. Political analyst speaking to us from the coast about the developments around the Nasrec Centre. That's here in Johannesburg in the south of the city. We're continuing with our coverage of the 55th ANC National Conference.